Welcome to the deep dive. We've sifted through that pile of sources you sent over the articles, the research, really trying to get a handle on some big ideas about the global system, politics, economics, how it all hangs together.
Exactly. And our goal really for this deep dive is just to pull out the key takeaways from all that material. We're looking at how countries, operate internationally, the economic binds they find themselves in, and how they try to link up economically.
Okay, let's jump in. The sources start with this idea of the global interstate system. What's the core of that, really?
Well, the material describes it as essentially the modern world stage, but specifically focused on states, on nations, constantly interacting. It's this complex web where these distinct political units are always, competing, cooperating, forming alliances. It's the playground for state power, globally speaking.
Got it. So states aren't just islands, they're constantly bumping up against each other. Now, something that popped out from the sources was this term golden straitjacket. Sounds pretty restrictive. It's linked to Thomas Friedman, right?
It is, and the source presents it exactly like that restrictive. It's a kind of pressure. The argument lifted out is that economic globalization basically pushes states towards a choice. If you want to attract foreign investment, if you want to be a player in the global economy, you feel this pull to adopt certain policies, free market policies, neoliberal policies,
Or risk getting left out.
or risk getting left out. Yeah,
Yeah.
isolation.
And the source connects this to the electronic herd.
Yeah.
That term definitely paints a picture. Money moving fast.
It does, and I think that's the point. The electronic herd is meant to represent those big global financial players, investors, multinational corporations, hedge funds. They can shift huge amounts of capital almost instantly, moving it into countries they see as playing by the rules.
The rules they like.
Right, the rules friendly to international business demands, and they can pull it out just as fast if things change or if they don't like a government's policies. So this mobility, this herd, creates enormous pressure on governments to keep that straitjacket on tight, to adopt the policies these global actors prefer.
Wow. Okay, so that pressure seems like it directly clashes with something else the sources bring up. Economic sovereignty. That's just a nation's right to control its own economic destiny, isn't it?
Precisely. And the sources frame neoliberalism, the push for privatization, deregulation, cutting government spending as an ideology that tends to prioritize the power of global capital, of economic elites. So you see the tension immediately. The golden straitjacket, kind of pushed by the electronic herd and these neoliberal ideas, nudges states towards policies dictated by global markets, potentially weakening their own independent economic sovereignty.
So it really makes you ask, as the source seems to suggest, how much real choice, how much power do states even have when facing down that herd and the pressure to fit in?
That's presented as a fundamental question for understanding how states act in the world economy today, based on this material.
Okay. So nations are navigating these pressures, but they also try to work together, cooperate. The sources talk about different steps of economic integration. It's not like flipping a switch. It's a process.
Right, exactly. And maybe the key thing isn't memorizing 7 different stages, but seeing the progression. It starts small. Maybe 2 countries agree to lower tariffs on just a few specific goods. That's a preferential trading area. Simple stuff.
Okay, like dipping a toe in the water. Then maybe they get rid of all tariffs between themselves. A free trade area.
Yeah, that's the next step up. Then a bigger leap is the customs union. Same free trade inside. But now they agree on common tariffs for goods coming from outside the group. That means giving up some individual control over trade policy.
Right, they have to act as one block to the rest of the world.
And then you get into the really deep integration. A common market. That's not just goods, but also services, money, and crucially, people moving freely across borders within the group. That unlocks a lot economically.
That sounds like a huge step.
It is. And beyond that, you've got even tighter coordination. Syncing up economic policies more broadly, economic union, maybe even adopting a single currency like the Eurozone did, economic and monetary union. And the ultimate step is basically merging economic policy entirely, maybe even taxes. Complete economic integration. The point is, each step involves trading a bit more national control for potentially bigger collective economic benefits.
It really maps out the different levels of commitment states can make, trading that sovereignty we talked about for deeper economic ties. Interesting. Now, while governments are doing this state-level stuff, the sources also highlight actors working across borders, transnational activism, and social movements.
Yeah, this shifts the view a bit. It's not just about states. These are groups, individuals, organizations working across national lines. They're often challenging existing power structures, specific institutions, or focusing on particular issues like human rights or the environment. They're not bound by borders in the same way.
And the global justice movement gets a specific mention in the material.
It does. It's described as this very broad coalition, sometimes called a movement of movements. They often critique the negative impacts of economic globalization and the institutions, like the World Trade Organization, that shape it. They're pushing for alternatives, usually from outside the official channels.
And what's the key tool the source points to that helps them coordinate and get their message out? Something we're all pretty familiar with.
Social media. The sources really emphasize its role. It's a platform for sharing information, for building networks across countries, for, coordinating action much more easily than ever before. It's dramatically increased the visibility and potentially the impact of these transnational movements.
Okay, so pulling it all together then, we've looked at the global system that nations live in, those economic pressures like the golden straitjacket that challenge their sovereignty, the different paths they can take towards integrating their economies, and the role of these global movements, often amplified by social media, pushing from below.
And grasping these different forces described in your sources, that constant interplay between state power, global economic rules, and citizen action across borders, it really gives you a useful framework for understanding what's happening in the world.
It really does. So as a final thought to leave you with, given these intense pressures of economic globalization pushing down and the increasing reach of global movements pushing up, how might the actual power and the role of the traditional nation state change in the future? And maybe more importantly, what does that mean for you as a citizen living inside one? Something to think about after this deep dive.